Hello and welcome back. I hope you are having a great week. What I thought we would do in today's video is a little bit of a cooking video. I wanted to share, I found an amazing recipe for a gluten-free focaccia bread that's really straightforward, really easy. I've mentioned this before. I have a lot of intolerances and things like that, and so I tend to have to make things from scratch at home, which is fine, but I'm not a chef and I'm not a great cook, so I like very simple, very easy recipes, and I have always sort of shied away from breads or anything really that required yeast. It always seemed really challenging, and it came about, we're in winter here and we're sort of towards the end of winter now, but when I'm making like a stew, which is what I'm making today in here in the slow cooker, so when I'm making like a stew, I love having like fresh bread with stew, and when you're gluten-free, it's very challenging to find tasty gluten-free bread. So I found this recipe and it's so insanely good and so simple and easy. I thought I would just share it with you. I'm obviously, as I said, going to make it gluten-free, but if you're not gluten-free, I'll give you some alternatives as we go along. So these are the ingredients we're going to be using today. These ones here are actually just flavory ones, but that's it. That's all we're really going to be using. So I've got some gluten-free flour here. I've got 2 cups of water. I've got apple cider vinegar. I have yeast. I've got some baking powder, I've got some olive oil, and I've got a little bit of maple syrup. So they're our main ingredients. We'll go over sort of the measurements of that as we go along. And all I'm going to be using for equipment is I've got a cake tin. I think, doesn't even say on the back. I think this is maybe like a 20cm cake tin, but you could use anything if you've got a different size cake tin. If you've got like a square tin that you'd like to use, by all means. I just happen to have this one, so I'm using it. And the other thing I'm going to be using is this here. So this is a Magimix Cook Expert. I've had this for probably 4 or 5 years now. Absolutely love it. As someone who does not enjoy cooking but loves food and loves having fresh food at home, this has just been amazing. It makes cooking so easy. I use it constantly. If I'm cooking, this is what I'm using. I can make, soups in it, my scones, breads, pancakes, vegetarian mince for spaghetti bolognese. I can make all different sauces and just, the cookies, I make my cookies in here. It's amazing. It is an investment. I will say it is an investment. They're probably like $2,000 or something like that. But I started off with a Magimix food processor and then really felt like I had space in my life and in my cooking for the Cook Expert, and I would never go back. I don't think I could exist in the kitchen without my Cook Expert. It is a thermo cooker, so there are other brands. I think Thermomix is another really popular brand. I chose Magimix. There's a lot of reasons for that, which I won't go into, but I chose the Magimix brand. Couldn't be happier with it. So we'll be using that today. I would like to, but yeah, so I absolutely love it. And it comes with so many attachments. It makes things so easy. So this is the metal bowl, which we'll be using today. If I just take the lid off, you'll see that it's got like a little blade in there. You can make soups, curries, cakes, breads, all in this metal bowl. This is just the standard blade here. I do also have like a dough blade. I'm not even going to use that for today's recipe. We're just going to go really simple. But so that's that there. But I will just very quickly show you. This won't be all about Magimix. But in this drawer down here, these are all of my attachments for the Magimix. So this is the food processor bowls. These are all your blades. So it slices, it grates for me. This is the dicing kit in here. It will dice things. So the stew that I've made this morning and I've had on all day, I use the dicing kit to dice up the carrots, the zucchini, pumpkin, potatoes, all of that, and just to like little cubes, it does that for you. There's like a steam kit in here. There is a juicer, I think, at the back. What else have we got? The spiralizing kit. In any event, they're amazing. And all of these attachments attach to the base that's on the counter there. So it just lives on my counter, always, given the amount that I use it. It is quite heavy, so you definitely don't want to be moving it around a lot. But yeah, couldn't recommend having it enough. I use it so much. Like, you can make salads if you put the food processor on. You can make whole salads so quick and easy with it. Anyway, I could go on and on and on about my love for the Magimix, but I won't. I'm going to be using this today. However, if you do not have a Magimix or any sort of food processor, if you've got like a KitchenAid stand-up mixer, you could use that. But if you don't have any of those things and you just have a bowl and a spoon, this recipe will work for you as well. You don't need any sort of fancy equipment, but I just wanted to explain that I will be using this today. All right, so without further ado, I'm just going to get into it. As I said, I have a stew cooking, and it's not too far away from being ready. So I want to have the bread ready to go once dinner is ready, so I can have the fresh bread at the same time. All right, hopefully you can see where I have you propped up there. I'm hoping you're picking up what's going on in the metal bowl, because that's where all of our ingredients will actually end up. So first thing we're going to pop in is 3.5 cups of flour. So I'm using gluten-free flour, just plain flour, not self-raising flour. If you're not gluten-free, I imagine this recipe would work very similar with just normal plain flour. I've never made it though with plain flour. So if you do make it with plain flour, please let me know how it turned out. I'll link the full recipe down in the description box below. So how we're going to make this today, I have made it as per the recipe, but I have made this bread probably every week for the last 2-3 months. It's just that good. I have adapted it, so I've changed some of the ingredients and I've changed some of the process to work for me. So that's how I'm going to make it today. And it's probably a little bit more than half. So let's just go. So it's 3.5 cups. So I've got 3 in there, and I'm just sort of having a look. That's about half. I'm definitely one of those people, I kind of measure with my heart, I think that they say. So try and get close, but you know, if it's not exact, it's not the end of the world. So what I've just popped in there is the garlic powder. The recipe doesn't actually call for garlic powder, but I just like to add it. I like that sort of garlicky taste in the focaccia bread, so I've just added that in there. I think I added a tablespoon of garlic powder. Then I'm going to add 2 1/4 teaspoons of the yeast. Then I'm adding 1 tablespoon of the baking powder. And the other thing I'm going to add again, I don't know if the recipe actually calls for this, but I've got the garlic powder in there, and I'm also just going to add some rosemary. This is just dried organic rosemary. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that in there for some flavor. Now, we've got sort of all of our dry ingredients in here. I'm just going to pop the lid on and I'm going to turn that on and just let that mix through. So while that's mixing through, I'm just going to preheat the oven to approving temperature. So that's about 100 degrees Celsius. I think it is 200 degrees Fahrenheit. If you work in Fahrenheit, I work in Celsius. So I'm just going to turn the oven on now to get it warm so that we can pop the bread in there to rise. So that's just mixing through the ingredients there. While that's also doing that, so then the next thing we need to do is heat up the water. So I have 2 cups of filtered water in here. I am going to just heat this up on the stovetop. I actually don't have a microwave. I haven't had a microwave for, goodness, maybe 15 years. It's not an appliance that I have ever missed. I just don't like how it heats things or how it cooks food. So I don't have a microwave, but if you have a microwave, you can heat your water in the microwave. But what we're going to try and do is get the water to about 43 to 45 degrees Celsius or 110 to 115 Fahrenheit. So to measure that, so there is a very clear warning on the recipe. You do not want your water too hot, otherwise it will actually kill the yeast. So I'm just going to pop this into the tea kettle just to warm up a little bit, and I have a thermometer here that I'm going to use just to measure that temperature so that we don't overheat the water. Okay, so I have heated my water up here. It is a couple of degrees too hot at this point, so I'm just going to wait a moment and let it cool down a little bit. Whilst it's cooling down, I did just want to reiterate, you definitely don't need something like this to make this recipe. You'll see so far all I've done is just pop the dry ingredients in and mix them through. You could just do that in a normal standard bowl, or if you've got a Thermomix or a KitchenAid stand mixer, whatever you have. Very simple to get to this stage. The other thing I do want to just mention is, so on my oven I have like a little light that once the desired temperature is reached, the light turns off. So for me, my oven light has just turned off to tell me that it's reached the 100 degrees Celsius. So I'm just going to turn my oven off now, which you should do once it reaches that temperature. And then the oven will actually keep itself a little bit warm, and then that's kind of what you want, like a warm oven that is completely switched off to put your bread in when it's ready to rise. Cool. So I'm just turning the oven. The next step is to add in a tablespoon of either honey or maple syrup. I don't have honey, so I have maple syrup, but if you have honey and you prefer honey, by all means use that. So we're just adding that into the hot water, mixing it around, just so that it dissolves, that's all. Okay, we have the right temperature for our water, and we have added the tablespoon of maple syrup / honey, whatever you have, and we're just pouring that in. And then we're just going to mix the water through, and it will sort of create like a bit of like quite a sticky dough. If you're using a mixer like this, you might just find that you need to scrape down the sides so that the flour mixes through. Okay, so as you can see, it's quite like a kind of sticky, runny sort of consistency. Now we're just going to add in a little bit of salt. teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. And then we're going to add in some olive oil. Now, the recipe called for, let me have a look, half a cup of olive oil. That's just too much olive oil for me. So I do not put that much in at all. So what's in my hand here is a cup. That's about all I'm putting in. So maybe a quarter of a cup. So once that's all in, just mixing again. Okay. So once the dough is all sort of mixed through and it kind of looks like this. So it's sort of a thick, it's kind of not really what I imagine dough necessarily to look like, but it is sort of a thick-ish consistency. It is still a little bit runny and it's quite sticky. That's when it's kind of ready to go. And you can transfer it to your container and then pop it in the oven to rise. So to save on dishes, because I do not like to wash 500 different pots and pans, I think the original recipe, you sort of transfer the dough from here onto like a cookie sheet and let it rise on the cookie sheet and all sorts of things. I'm going to transfer my dough into this cake tin. And then I'm going to cover it and it's going to go into the warmed oven to rise. I am then going to, once it's done rising, we'll bring it back out and I'll show you what it looks like once it's done rising. Then we'll add a little bit of salt on the top, a little bit of olive oil, and then it will go in this container back into the oven to cook. Again, because I don't like to wash things and I don't like having to have things really difficult to get out of containers and things, I have just put some baking paper around this cake tin just so that it doesn't stick or anything like that. All right. That is what my bread looks like at this stage. You then need to cover it. Again, I think the recipe calls for like cling film. I don't like using cling film. I definitely don't like putting it in a warmed oven. So what I'm doing is just getting a little bit of baking paper and then just popping that on top. And then with that, I will also cover it with a tea towel. The bread will rise to such a level that if you didn't have the baking paper, it would attach, like the bread would be touching the tea towel, which I don't like either. So that's the little layer of baking paper in between the tea towel and the bread. So once you have that, like so, that just goes and pops straight into your warm oven. Doesn't matter which like shelf it's on, top shelf, bottom shelf, whatever, but you just want your oven warmed as we previously discussed, and then you want to just pop it in there to rise for 30 minutes. So just while we're waiting for the bread to rise in the oven, I thought I would just pop outside and do a little sort of evening garden walk and show you some of the updates in the garden. We are mid-August here, so we're just at the end of winter, coming into spring. You can see here that the white crepe myrtle has all been cut back now. But we're definitely seeing signs of spring in the garden. The onions are doing so well, the brown onions. They will be ready to harvest in a couple of weeks, I think. But yeah, they're looking great. The kale is still looking really good. Beetroots are also amazing. There, quite a few of them are now ready to harvest. So I'll probably start having sort of salads and that kind of thing next week. And we'll be able to harvest these beetroots for that purpose. So you can just see in here. And the beetroots there. They're all coming along. And we've got some actually quite good sized ones, which is lovely. What else? We've still got some beautiful flowers. The orange trees are just starting to flower now as well. So you can see here, they're just getting little buds on them. So they'll flower in spring and they'll start to fruit and then next winter, so almost 12 months from now, we'll be able to harvest oranges. The wildflower that we planted together, goodness, was that maybe a month ago or a few weeks back anyway, has really started to bloom. You can see we've got the beautiful white flowers there and the little purple ones. That was actually a really lovely seed mix. You can see like all the different sort of like textures and things like that. So I'll be very curious to see what other flowers sort of come from that. This little peach blooms. So hopefully we'll get some beautiful peaches this year. We have had peaches from this tree before and they were absolutely lovely. But yes, that's very exciting. If I step in here. Almost finished with this new little path up here. You can sort of see, hopefully in this light, you can kind of see it's going up there. So almost done with that. But the garden's just looking so beautiful at this time of year, and you can see over here all of the jasmine's flowering on this one here. And we'll get that beautiful sort of jasmine blossom smell in the coming weeks as this all just comes up with flowers. You can see all the little buds on it. Oh, it's just going to bloom beautifully. But so spring is definitely in the air. Everything's just looking really happy, really lush. We've actually had a couple of days of rain that's just sort of stopped. Kind of today actually. We were just blessed with this absolutely stunning day today. Not a cloud in the sky. Really beautiful. And you can see here, we cut this crepe myrtle back, goodness, probably about a month or two ago, but look at all of the little, focus, look at all of these, all the little buds are just coming out and going to get ready to bloom. You can kind of see them there. So just very quickly show you, look at this beautiful hanging. It's a type of succulent. Look at all the beautiful little buds on it, little flowers. It's full of bees though, they're absolutely loving it. Beautiful. The dough has been in the oven rising for 30 minutes now. So I'll just show you, I've just taken the tea towel off. I'll just show you. There you go. So you can see there's just a little bit of dough on the top of that baking paper. But that's how it rises. So now I'm just going to leave mine, as I said earlier, I'm just going to leave mine in this container. And then for the toppings, now it tells you to sort of put your fingers in there and sort of make little holes for the olive oil and the salt. I don't like to do that. I got a weird thing about like substances and textures on my fingers. So what I do is just get a spoon. I just use sort of the end of the spoon and I just sort of touch along the top just so that there's little sort of divots in the bread that the olive oil and the salt can sort of sink into. So that's what I'm going to do there. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't put a lot of olive oil over the top of this either. I just don't like it really oily. However, if you love olive oil, go for it, and you pour heaps of olive oil over yours. But I just personally, yeah, don't like that. So, we've got the olive oil on top. And then I'm just going to pop some salt over the top. And then we're going to put this back in the oven at 200 degrees Celsius. I think maybe 400 degrees Fahrenheit, but 200 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes. Just really keep an eye on your oven so that it doesn't burn or anything like that. You don't want it to burn. You sort of want it to be like a nice golden brown color, which I will show you shortly. So yeah, I'm just going to pop mine back in for 20 minutes at 200 degrees. Okay, so this is our focaccia bread out of the oven. I just think it looks amazing. And as you can see, it's not super cooked on the top. It's just sort of like a light brown color. You can see a little bit still of the olive oil that hasn't kind of soaked through. But yeah, that's what it looks like. Such an easy recipe to make. Not a lot of ingredients. There's no sort of kneading, or you don't have to leave it overnight. And then I'm just taking it out like that. And we'll let it cool a little bit. The stew's probably got maybe another 5 or 10 minutes. So by the time the stew's ready, this will have cooled sufficiently for us to be able to actually eat it. It's such a great recipe. I'm so glad I found it. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've made this recipe so many times now over the last couple of months. If you're somebody so this is actually quite like a large loaf. What I'll be doing is, so I've made a whole pot of stew today, and I'll be eating that like tomorrow and over the next couple of days. So I will cut this up into like little tiny sections, and I'll leave some of them out to have with the stew over the next couple of days. But then the remaining part of it, the remaining sort of slices of bread that I'll have, I actually just freeze them. So if you're somebody who's cooking for one or just even for two, and you're not going to get through this entire loaf of bread, in a couple of days, you can just freeze it. And then next, in the coming weeks, if you need bread, you can just take it out of the freezer, thaw it out, reheat it a little bit in the oven, just so it's nice and warm. And then you've got fresh sort of bread. This is, again, a gluten-free recipe. There's no dairy in it, no sort of sugars or anything like that. It's just such a simple, easy recipe. It didn't take us long to do. I mean, obviously it took a little bit longer today because I was talking you through it. But if I wasn't actually on camera talking you through it, the whole thing, it takes me maybe 10 minutes, and then it just goes into the oven to rise for half an hour. Then you just take it out, put your salt, your olive oil on top, pop it back in the oven for 20 minutes, and there you go, it's done. No overnight, no kneading, none of those sorts of things. It also doesn't dirty a lot of dishes, which I really appreciate and love. So I've really just got the cake tin and my metal bowl and the Maggi mix. But apart from that, it didn't really dirty anything else. It wasn't my measuring spoons and things like that. But it wasn't like it was, 6 different bowls and all sorts of things. So there's heaps of washing up to do. But yes, so that is the recipe that I wanted to share with you today. I hope you have really enjoyed it. And just something a little bit different this week. I'd like to start sharing recipes over the coming months, not every week, but just weeks where I'm making something that I think that you'll all enjoy. I do have allergies. I don't have sugar or anything like that because it gives me migraines, and I'm sure there are other people out there that are just like me who want really delicious, easy recipes, and they're the ones that I tend to make. So very happy to share them with you. But that will probably be it for this week. So I will cut this up now, and then when the stew's ready, I'll have it with the stew and maybe sit down and just watch a movie tonight. And yeah, so I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I will see you next week for another video. Bye.